Hey guys, Romating Reaper here. So yep, as you can see, I'm outside Odeon, taking advantage of them actual perks once again. So as you can see, I'm going to head in to see Caught Stealing. Yep, it does look good. Looks like right up my street, a sort of Guy Ritchie-esque romp. So, this should definitely be a good time. But the only way to find out is to actually head in, get some snacks, and get seated for Caught Stealing. It's quite interesting. There's actually a merch sale going on, £2 across all old merch. Definitely gonna have to take advantage of that. Well, stay tuned to see which ones I actually got. I've got my popcorn here and a Coca-Cola, ready for an against type effort from Darren Aronofsky. So obviously earlier in the video I teased that Odeon were doing a merch sale, £2 across all their old merch, old popcorn buckets and cups. Well, here's the big reveal of what I actually got. So first up we have this lovely looking Karate Kid Legends popcorn bucket. I absolutely love the design of this. You can see there depicting the climactic karate match. And also the the New York buildings. Really cool design. You can see there's a bit of spot gloss and embossing, utilized really well. And actually inside there's similar artwork of the buildings. It's really well done. Of course you've got like slogans up there like karate is everything and tradition since 1984. A little fun nod to the original film there. Yeah, really nice. I also got this F1 cup. Yeah, lovely design on this, very keeping with the Apex GP aesthetic from the film. And of course, yes, there's the Apex GP team logo on there. Yeah, really nice. £2 each. Couldn't argue. Anyways, onto the film, Caught Stealing. I'm back from seeing it. It's directed by Darren Aronofsky, director of such light-hearted films as Requiem for a Dream, Mother, and The Whale. This is also written by Charlie Huston, who's actually adapting his own novel for the big screen. It's looked to be a bit of a change of pace for Aronofsky, something more fun, a more straightforward crime thriller. And from the trailer, this looked to have kind of a Guy Ritchie thing going on. Obviously, violence and a sort of cheeky sense of humor, but also a colorful cast of characters. It's basically the kind of mid-budget thriller that we don't really get a lot of on the big screen anymore. And obviously this is the kind of thing that is, basically primed for me to have a good time with. But does Aronofsky actually deliver on the promise of this against type directing effort? Let's find out. So the film follows Hank Thompson, a former high school baseball player living in New York. He has a loving girlfriend and a solid job going working as a bartender. That is until one day his neighbour Russ asks him to look after his cat while he heads home to London. And soon Hank finds his life turned upside down as he finds himself caught in the middle of a dangerous criminal underworld comprising of the Russians, the Jews, and the Puerto Ricans, soon finding himself in a desperate fight for survival. Obviously, it's difficult to compare this to Aronofsky's other films, since it's so wildly different. And one could argue him doing a straightforward genre pick like this is him playing it safe. And honestly, though, the fact that he is willing to go against what is expected of his films is a sign that he is willing to challenge himself. I respect that a lot, And honestly, I'd be down for him to show more of this side in future, because yeah, I had a blast with this. Obviously, at its core, the story is nothing particularly groundbreaking. It's that old tried and true crime thriller setup of colourful cast of characters all after the same thing, and main character caught in the middle of that. Think like Snatch or Bullet Train. But you can really see that Aronofsky is relishing the chance to just have fun. Whether it be in action scenes like a shootout in a bar or a car chase, really relishing the chance to do these like fun, violent scenes. He also brings a sort of sense of humor to it as well. It's consistently very funny throughout, and it does land. He really does have a lot of fun bringing that energy to things. It also has some darker edges to it, in keeping with Aronofsky's other films. There's a very interesting thing in here about how our trauma owns us if we don't face up to it. It's, very compelling stuff. And it's also got a sense of grit to it. It's shot on location in New York, so the whole thing does feel quite lived in, accompanied by a solid score by Rob Simonson with original music by Idols. Bringing a sort of punkish energy to it with its emphasis on guitars and drums. And obviously that extends to the sort of rock and roll, punk rock needle drops. Although, unfortunately, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the Jane's Addiction song, Been Caught Stealing, it's not in there. I'm sorry you had to hear it from me, but that's how it is. At times, the pacing can be a little bit uneven, particularly in a stretch after the inciting incident happens, but the plot, by and large, is really compelling stuff and does take some very interesting twists and turns throughout. But I think what makes it so compelling is the fact that we have a very likable lead in the form of Hank, played by Austin Butler. He's very much commanding the whole thing. Obviously, Butler has such a trademark sense of movie star cool that he brings to his performances. And that rings true here as well, particularly in one scene later on in the film, where it's just him in a batting cage, no dialogue needed, just the pure, unfiltered presence of a proper movie star. He is great. But he also does a great job selling the more troubled side of Hank as he battles his own demons within. And he really sells it. It's very, very compelling. He also has great chemistry with Zoe Kravitz as his girlfriend, Yvonne. She's definitely left a bit to the sidelines, but for what she is very likable and does have a great dynamic with Butler. Matt Smith is very, very funny as his punk rocker neighbor Russ. His aggressive energy does consistently deliver some of the film's biggest laughs. We also have Regina King doing a great job as this tough as nails police detective Roman, who's very much on the trail of this criminal underworld. And yeah, the characters in it are great fun, whether it be the two Jews, Lieber and Schmully, played by Liev Schreiber and Vincent D'Onofrio. We also have the very fun presence of Bad Bunny as Puerto Rican gangster Colorado. All these characters are very fun in their own way, and it does make the whole thing so damn entertaining to watch. But obviously, the scene stealer, the undisputed MVP, is the cat. The cat's the real star. The cat is great. And obviously, as much as the film does build to this very, very interesting test of morals for Hank and his whole desperate fight for survival, all of that stuff is really, really interesting. But what this is really about, is his mission to protect this cat from harm and his relationship with it makes for a very interesting subplot. You're very much wanting the cat to come out of this unharmed, and obviously that creates very interesting and gripping stakes throughout. And honestly, the resolution of this stuff, I imagine will leave a lot of people very satisfied, It does go in some very satisfying directions, and honestly, there are a couple little surprises in the credits as well that you gotta sit for, because yeah, they are some real real fun reveals that I won't spoil, but yeah, you gotta experience them for yourself. Overall, Caught Stealing, while certainly not reinventing the wheel of the crime thriller, does allow Darren Aronofsky to lean into a different side to the rest of his films, which he really relishes, with a fun, high energy, compelling plot and a very likable movie star lead in Austin Butler. Out of 10, Caught Stealing gets a 7.5. So let me know down in the comments, have you seen Caught Stealing? What did you think of it? What do you make of it in comparison to the rest of Aronofsky's films? Would you like to see him lean into this more fun side in future? And are you excited for what Austin Butler will grace his charismatic presence with in future? Let me know all that down in the comments. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're new, and don't forget to turn on post notifications so you don't miss an upload.